You will address this council properly, human. Hissed High Overlord Varkath of the Varan Dominion. His skin shimmered like wet obsidian, his voice a rasp of grinding stones. You arrive uninvited, you interrupt our annexation, and you dare bring tea? Helena blinked mildly, as though startled by the concept of offense. Well, I was told meetings this long required hydration, and your water tastes like someone boiled a battery. She poured the tea carefully into 2 cups, steam curling like lazy ghosts between them. Earl Grey. Civilized flavor for uncivilized times. Would you like some? The delegates murmured, offended, fascinated. The Lux Collective, a cluster of glowing translucent orbs communicating via shared thought light, hummed irritably. The human displays sarcasm again. Their species treats irony as armor. Better than treating arrogance as oxygen, Helena replied sweetly. A ripple of laughter passed through the lesser delegates, quickly silenced by a telepathic pulse from the Zeke counselor, a skeletal creature whose eyes shimmered like silver lakes. You misunderstand, fleshling. This council tolerates you because the Empire values curiosity before extermination. Explain why humanity claims our border moon as neutral ground. Helena tilted her head. Because neutrality is the only thing that keeps your ships from colliding with our sense of humor. She took a measured sip of tea, watching their confusion with the kind of patience only humans weaponized. But if you want the formal answer, our colonies signed a mutual defense pact. Violate it, and you declare war. The air thickened. Dozens of translators blinked, struggling to keep pace with her tone, polite, clipped, yet layered with the faintest thread of threat. Behind her calmness, a swarm of invisible microdrones dispersed from her cufflink, mapping psionic frequencies, scanning for weapons, storing everything in her ocular implant. She had done this dance before, diplomacy by day, reconnaissance by charm. The Varan overlord slammed his clawed hand against the armrest, cracking its marble edge. Your kind are ants with rifles. You speak as if equal. Helena set her cup down gently. Oh no, she said. We're far worse. We're ants with coffee. The remark spread confusion for a heartbeat, then silence, then an explosion of alien chatter. The Lux Collective pulsed scarlet in agitation. The Zeke's mental voice boomed. Mockery is a poor survival strategy. Survival, Helena said softly, is humanity's favorite hobby. The hall erupted again. Voices echoed in 10 languages, dripping contempt. The Varan rose, towering twice her height, and stepped down from the dais. The lights dimmed instinctively to his bioluminescent glare. I could crush you, he said, voice trembling with the joy of cruelty. No one would care. You represent a backwater species clinging to mud and sentimentality. She met his eyes. And yet here you are, holding a conference about us. A vein of fury pulsed beneath his throat scales. He moved closer. You will kneel. Forgive me, she said, stepping forward. Humans only kneel for proposals or prayer. The sound came like thunder. His strike was so fast the air rippled. His clawed hand caught her across the cheek, throwing her to the reflective floor. Gasps rolled through the chamber. Blood streaked the glass beneath her, a bright crimson stain against sterile perfection. The hall's acoustics caught the drop of her teacup as it shattered, a soft, echoing punctuation. Helena didn't rise at once. She tasted iron and static, spat once, then lifted herself with a grace that insulted pity. Thank you, she said calmly. Now I know you bleed red too. The Overlord froze. You can stop now, she interrupted gently. You've just proven my report. She turned slightly toward the counselor. Observe. The Empire's leadership responds to logic with violence. I recommend therapy. Or, at least decoff. Even the translators hesitated to speak. The insult translated unevenly into 50 dialects, some hearing weak brew, others psychological inferiority. The effect was the same, humiliation. The Zeke counselor's eyes flared. You mock sacred order. For this, you are detained. Helena nodded once, straightening her jacket as if preparing for a dinner reservation. Of course. May I request my luggage not be vaporized this time? The guards approached, 6 armored troopers, towering, insectoid. She offered no resistance. The drones in her cufflink deactivated, folding like silver dust. The mission was done. Her voice remained light. "You know, there's something about this hall," she murmured as they grabbed her arms. "So beautiful. So fragile. Reminds me of diplomacy." They dragged her toward the exit. The other delegates whispered, some fearful, some amused. She turned her head slightly, speaking over her shoulder with the deliberate softness of someone recording history. "I wonder," she said, "how many civilizations have fallen while congratulating themselves." The doors sealed behind her with a hiss that sounded almost like applause. The hall fell silent except for the faint drip of tea cooling on the floor. Hours later, within a holding chamber of polished steel and indifferent light, Helena sat shackled to a chair designed for something with more limbs. A hollow scribe floated before her, documenting every breath. An alien interrogator leaned close, its face a lattice of chitin and mirrors. "You will sign confession," it said. "Human aggression will be logged as provocation." Helena smiled. "Aggression?" I offered tea. "Your tone," it clicked, "is violence." "My tone," she said, "is patience." They struck her again. She laughed quietly, and for the first time the interrogator hesitated. There was no fear in her eyes, only calculation, and something older, colder. When the guards returned to escort her to public sentencing, she asked one of them, "Tell me, how do you translate the word home?" The guard's translator stuttered, confused. She smiled faintly. "Never mind. You'll learn soon enough." The corridors of the citadel hummed with power, lined by banners of conquered worlds. As they led her through them, she watched the alien glyphs slide across marble and thought, beautiful craftsmanship. Shame about the arrogance. At the chamber doors, the Varan overlord waited again, armor gleaming, satisfied. "You will be transmitted to the galaxy," he announced. "Let them see what becomes of insolent species." "Excellent," she replied. "Humans do love an audience." He sneered. "Any final words, Ambassador?" Helena's gaze lingered on the ceiling, on the faint shimmer where her drones had mapped every neural frequency of every delegate in that hall. She smiled as if thinking of something private, something far away. "Just a message to my children," she said softly. "Coordinates mostly." He frowned. "What?" "Don't worry," she whispered. "You'll understand when they arrive." The guards shoved her into the light. Her body flickered, dissolved into the transporter beam, vanishing into containment orbit below. The Overlord exhaled sharply, shaking off unease. The council resumed its chatter, dismissing her as another failed diplomat from a species too sentimental to matter. But deep in the reflection of the hall floor, where her blood had fallen, the glass pulsed once, subtly, almost like a heartbeat, then faded. Far above the citadel, a Terran transmission pinged through the diplomatic channels, encrypted beyond decoding. It carried only 5 words, in an old human tongue the translators refused to render. Later, linguists would try. The nearest translation would be chillingly mundane. "Tea's gone cold. Begin heating." And, on a silent trajectory from Earth, 3 faint signals answered. The broadcast began like a ceremony and ended like a farce. Across the galaxy, every screen tuned to the Empire's trial of the human diplomat. Helena Ward stood in a containment field, her face bruised but composed, eyes too calm for a prisoner. The court declared her guilty of insolence, defiance, and emotional contagion, whatever that meant to beings who measured empathy like radiation. When the energy flare consumed her, there was no scream, no sound, just a flicker of static, and the faint echo of her voice saying, "Tea's gone cold." On Earth, the transmission cut out mid-sentence. The silence that followed was not outrage, it was colder than that. The Terran Union issued no statement, no war threats, no protests. Only a single black flag appeared on every embassy building from Mars to Titan, a steaming cup outlined in white. No one outside humanity understood the symbol. The Empire mistook it for surrender. 3 weeks later, a shuttle left Lunar Dock 9, unregistered, its hull painted the deep gray of mourning. Its transponder listed it as ward estate, funeral transport. Inside, 3 figures sat beneath low amber lights, the hum of engines filling the silence like background grief. Marcus Ward, eldest, stared at a photo hovering above his wrist display, his mother holding a teacup, half smiling, half calculating. He looked too calm for a son who had just buried his last parent. At 28, he carried the easy charm of a soldier who'd learned that laughter disarms faster than bullets. "You realize," he murmured, "the Empire just live-streamed themselves executing a diplomat. 4 ratings. We could at least send them a thank you basket." Eliza Ward didn't look up from her console. 25, dark hair tied in a perfect knot, fingers tapping neural command codes with surgical precision. "A basket's too obvious. We'll send an apology letter instead. Polite, chilling, very mom." Her tone was level, almost detached, but her hands trembled once before steadying again. The youngest, Sam, sat cross-legged on the floor beside an open panel, surrounded by glowing components. 19, wiry, grease-streaked, eyes bright with a kind of mad intelligence that never quite shut off. "Guys," he said, "you're both missing the point. They killed her on live holo. You know what that means?" He grinned. "Free advertising." Eliza gave him a look that could have frozen lava. "You think this is a joke?" "No," Sam said softly. "I think this is a setup. Hers." Marcus exhaled through his nose, a sound between a sigh and a laugh. "Yeah, she never did like loose ends." The shuttle's AI interrupted with a soft chime. "Approaching Imperial border. Transmit diplomatic clearance codes." "Transmit," Marcus said. Eliza raised an eyebrow. "You forged those." He smirked. "I borrowed them. Big difference. Borrowing means I intend to return them. Eventually. In an envelope labeled Oops." The stars outside grew sharper, colder, as they entered Imperial patrol space. Beyond the viewport loomed the silver lattice of a border station, spiked like a crown, surrounded by a haze of smaller ships that moved with military precision. A holographic officer appeared, reptilian and self-satisfied. "Identify yourselves." "Human delegation," Marcus said cheerfully. "Marcus, Eliza, and Samuel Ward. We're here to collect the remains of Ambassador Helena Ward, late of the Terran Union. Diplomatic credentials attached." The officer sneered. "And you expect entry?" "Of course," Marcus said. "We brought snacks." There was a pause. The officer blinked, confused, then scanned their codes. The green light flashed. "Proceed," he said grudgingly. As the shuttle drifted into the Empire's central lane, Sam leaned back, grinning. "See? Mom was right. Politeness is camouflage." "Politeness is bait," Eliza corrected. Marcus glanced at her. "You still think she's dead?" "She made sure we'd ask that," Eliza replied. But the execution footage was consistent. Neural pattern flatlined. No escape trace. She paused, then added, "But she uploaded coordinates before death. That's not instinct. That's design." "Then let's see where she wanted us," Marcus said. Hours later, the shuttle docked above Velcara 9, the same shining world that had hosted Helena's humiliation. The city lights sprawled beneath them like a sleeping serpent, its towers glimmering in self-admiration. The Empire had already declared victory, holding a public exhibition called the End of Insolence. They'd even displayed Helena's teacup, cracked and bloodstained, inside a glass case. The siblings walked through the docking port, wearing the dark uniforms of mourning diplomats. Cameras followed their every step. Marcus carried the posture of someone born to draw attention. Eliza moved with calculated grace, scanning the crowd through her retinal overlays. Sam trailed behind, pretending to yawn while dropping micro-devices disguised as gum wrappers. At the ceremony, the Grand Minister of Discipline delivered a speech dripping with false civility. "The human species has been unpredictable," he said. "Their ambassador's fate, unfortunate but necessary. Yet we welcome her offspring in the spirit of closure." Marcus smiled warmly. "Closure's important. We brought something for that." Eliza opened a small case. Inside lay a folded Terran flag and a vial of ashes, symbolic, not literal. She placed both on the pedestal beneath Helena's teacup. The crowd murmured, camera zooming in. Sam coughed quietly, sinking his wristband to the pedestal's magnetic field. "Your mother," said the minister, "was a lesson to her kind." Marcus's voice softened. "She was. And every lesson needs review." The pedestal lights flickered. For a heartbeat, the holographic portrait behind it, Helena's serene face, blinked. Once, twice, then smiled. Gasps rippled through the assembly. The minister froze. "What?" The portrait spoke. "Tea's gone cold. Begin heating." Chaos followed. Every terminal across the plaza glitched simultaneously, displaying Helena's face. Her recorded voice, calm and amused, filled the air. To those who confuse restraint with weakness, consider this a reminder that Earth drinks its tea hot. The ground trembled. From orbit, satellites realigned as if guided by invisible strings. The capital's power grid hiccuped, flickered, then rerouted itself to a frequency not native to the empire. The crowd screamed. Security scrambled. The siblings didn't move. Eliza's tone was clinical. Phase 1 complete. Grid infiltration confirmed. Marcus nodded, expression unreadable. She always said funerals were good places for introductions. Sam pulled out a small device no larger than a keychain. "Want to see her last gift?" Before Eliza could answer, the skies above Velcara cracked with light. A single Terran transmission unfolded across the horizon like a curtain of flame, forming words in a dozen alien languages. "Humanity requests courtesy." The entire plaza stood still. Then the message burned away, leaving the imperial crest inverted. The siblings walked through the panic unharmed. Guards hesitated to touch them, uncertain if the humans were hostages, envoys, or something far worse. Marcus looked almost bored. "Well," he said, "that should get their attention." Eliza's hands were steady now, her earlier tremor gone. "It's not attention we want. It's memory." They reached the transport again, the chaos fading behind them like a storm receding. Sam leaned against the hatch, panting, exhilarated. "You think she planned this down to the second?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Mom never wasted a second." Eliza adjusted her earpiece, catching fragments of intercepted transmissions, panic, orders, disbelief. "They think it's a terrorist act. They have no idea it's a test." Sam looked puzzled. "A test of what?" Eliza glanced at him, her eyes reflecting the glow of distant fires. "Patience," she said. "Ours." The shuttle lifted silently into the stratosphere. Behind them, the city flickered between darkness and fire, a crown of chaos reflected in its own pride. Helena's voice echoed one last time through every imperial channel, low and calm. "The measure of a civilization is how it treats those it thinks it's already beaten." Marcus looked out the viewport, watching the light spread across the horizon like sunrise through smoke. "And the Empire," he said softly, "just failed that test." Eliza folded her hands. "Phase 2 begins at dawn." Sam grinned. "You mean breakfast time?" Marcus smirked. "Exactly. Let's feed them something they'll never forget." The shuttle disappeared into the black between worlds, leaving behind a planet of trembling lights and a single, haunting echo transmitted across the void. 3 signatures pulsing in sequence, mother and children reunited in code. Velcara 9 gleamed beneath them, a jewel of arrogance suspended in darkness. The capital rings shimmered with neon light and self-importance, broadcasting the Empire's favorite myth, that it could never fall. From orbit, the world looked untouchable. From inside the shuttle's viewport, it looked ripe. Marcus leaned back in the pilot's chair, boots crossed, voice casual. "So," he said, "everyone remembers the plan?" Eliza didn't look up from her console. Her reflection glowed blue against the glass, eyes calm and calculating. Phase 2, social infiltration, economic corruption, cognitive mapping, psychological misdirection. Then, she tapped a final command, and the holographic map of Velcara's city grid rotated, fractal layers folding in on themselves. Detonation, if necessary, preferably figurative. Sam, sprawled upside down in the co-pilot seat, twirled a screwdriver in one hand. "You two talk about subtlety like it's a personality trait. We could just blow up their power core and call it a day." Marcus grinned. That's not how Mom did it. She'd poison them politely. Right, Sam muttered. The tea approach. Exactly. Marcus straightened his tie. Operation Tea Party begins at dawn. Their shuttle descended through the upper atmosphere, slipping beneath the radar of Velcara's orbital sentinels. By sunrise, they were already dressed in formal attire. Eliza in a dark gray suit that could kill by tone alone, Marcus in crisp diplomatic uniform, and Sam in what looked like a mechanic's jumpsuit splattered with oil stains that weren't stains at all, but cloaked nanotech. The roles were set: charm, logic, and chaos. 3 notes in a single human symphony. The imperial capital was a contradiction made of glass and decay. Towers rose into clouds like frozen lightning, while markets below buzzed with thousands of species trading currencies and insults. The smell of ozone mingled with spice and arrogance. Banners of conquest hung over marble squares. Everything glittered because it had to distract from the rot. Their arrival at the Imperial Senate Plaza was a spectacle of suspicion. Alien guards stood with plasma rifles at parade rest, their posture carved from tradition and fear. The Grand Minister of Hospitality, a creature of feathers, rings, and perpetual self-importance, extended a limb in greeting. Welcome, Terran representatives. Your resilience is noted. Marcus shook the limb as though closing a business deal. We're nothing if not resilient. Earth keeps surviving its own ideas. Eliza bowed slightly. We come with no hostility. Nor humility, I assume, the minister purred. Depends on the tea, she said. They were escorted to the banquet chamber, where diplomats feasted beneath chandeliers powered by captive stars. Marcus studied the crowd: admirals, governors, intellectuals. Every conversation carried the same undertone: amusement at humanity's persistence. The siblings moved among them like shadows in polite light. Marcus charmed first. He poured drinks, laughed at insults, and taught the Lux Collective how to play poker. It's simple, he said, laying down his cards. Humans bet everything, even when we shouldn't. They didn't understand the metaphor until much later. Eliza worked differently. She shared human music, a soft instrumental composition she claimed soothed stress. In truth, it was a neural-patterned algorithm that threaded itself into the telepathic frequencies of a dozen species. The melody drifted across the hall, sinking beneath the noise, binding neurons together in a shared rhythm. Aliens sighed contentedly, unaware that their mental bandwidth was being quietly mapped, logged, and rewritten. Sam made himself invisible through chaos. He wandered the banquet, carrying a tray of experimental snacks. Earth chips, infused with harmless nanites that replicated within seconds of ingestion. Every crunch seeded another node in the network. Try the sour cream, he told a reptilian officer. It's addictive. By the time dessert arrived, the capital's communication grid was no longer the Empire's alone. It hummed with foreign syntax, Terran code disguised as etiquette. Status. Marcus murmured into his wristcom. Network infiltration 73%. Eliza replied softly, her smile convincing enough to win a peace prize. Phase 2 ahead of schedule. Sam strolled past with a tray of empty glasses. See? Snacks work better than speeches. The banquet shifted into an after-session of diplomacy, what humans would call networking and what the Empire called hierarchical feeding. The Grand Minister raised a glass. To humanity, he said. Proof that even small fires burn briefly before dying. Marcus lifted his own. To the Empire, proof that big fires often forget they're flammable. The room chuckled politely, misinterpreting the insult as humor. Eliza glanced at him sideways. You're enjoying this. He smirked. Mom always said revenge tastes better when served with wine. Across the city, the neuropatterned melody reached critical mass. The song, Echo of the Quiet Sea, drifted into public channels, cafes, guard stations, schools. Aliens hummed it unconsciously, spreading the signal. A billion beings linked by rhythm they didn't understand. By midnight, the siblings gathered in a private suite overlooking the skyline. Lightning rippled through the clouds like thought given shape. Holoscreens displayed the Empire's systems gradually bending toward Terran command. Eliza spoke first. Phase 3 initiate. Sam's fingers danced over a panel. Uploading Mother's final sequence. A soft chime confirmed the transfer. Across the planet, power grids flickered. The great orbital defenses, the pride of Velcara, rotated 1 degree west, aligning with invisible trajectories drawn centuries ago in Terran Deep archives. The Empire's security AIs began reciting fragments of Shakespeare and Churchill in binary. Marcus watched the lights dim, his reflection framed by thunder. She said diplomacy was our first weapon, he murmured. Looks like she wasn't exaggerating. From the central tower, alarms began to pulse, slow and confused. Alien technicians scrambled. The entire planetary network was still functional, but it was humming in a human key. Then the broadcast began. Helena Ward's voice echoed across the capital, calm and warm as memory. To those still certain of your superiority, relax. This is not war. This is an education. Citizens froze mid-step. The holograms above the plaza shifted, displaying Helena's face, the same serene expression from her trial. You built an empire on obedience, she continued. We built our civilization on defiance. Let's see which lasts longer. The reaction was chaos. Commanders barked orders. The sky lit up with interception beams. None hit their target. The siblings had already rerouted every satellite command node to respond to a single override. Human T protocol. A faint symbol appeared across every broadcast, a steaming cup outlined in white. Sam laughed breathlessly. They think it's propaganda. It's a virus, Eliza said. And it's polite. Marcus poured himself a drink from the minibar. To Mom. May her enemies always underestimate her recipes. Down below, the Empire's public data feeds rewrote themselves in real time. Economic ledgers became riddles. Military archives now contain poems. Entire navigation systems looped to coordinates that spelled words in ancient English. Mercy is optional. Within an hour, panic gripped the Senate. Ships launched, then froze mid-flight as their guidance systems locked into safe mode. The Lux Collective's telepathic field flickered between emotional tones they'd never experienced. Remorse, longing, humor. The Varan warlords, unable to communicate through their scrambled tactical channels, began shouting over open frequencies. Marcus leaned against the window, watching the madness unfold. And just like that, he whispered, we've turned gods into comedians. Eliza sat quietly, listening to the hum of her instruments. No, she said softly, into humans. He looked at her. That's worse. The siblings shared a silence, heavy with something between pride and sorrow. They hadn't destroyed the Empire. They'd made it feel. Helena had planned it all. Revenge not through annihilation, but contamination of the soul. Sam spun in his chair, grinning. We just gave them empathy. That's the cruelest thing Mom ever did. Marcus laughed once, without joy. She always said the universe needed more conscience. Guess she meant it literally. Suddenly, a tremor rocked the suite. The lights cut to crimson. Eliza's eyes narrowed at her monitor. Incoming fleet from the outer ring. Half the Imperial Armada. They're moving to quarantine Velcara. Smart move, Marcus said. Contain the infection. Sam smirked. Too late. It's already airborne. On the main screen, one final notification blinked. A personal transmission tagged with Helena's signature. It wasn't a recording this time. It was a live feed originating from deep within the planetary archive, a location that shouldn't exist. Marcus's glass froze halfway to his lips. That's impossible. Eliza's breath hitched. She's gone. Sam whispered, or she never left. The transmission opened, static bleeding into form. A familiar voice, faint but steady, filled the room. Children, tea still hot. Time to serve the main course. The siblings stared, disbelief warring with hope, as the planet's network surged to full power under a single unified control. Hers. For a moment, none of them moved. Marcus's glass slipped from his hand and shattered, amber liquid spreading across the console like a slow sunrise. Eliza's lips parted, breath shallow. Sam simply stared, fingers trembling above the controls. She's alive, he whispered. The hologram sharpened. Helena stood in a dimly lit chamber lined with Imperial architecture, though the walls pulsed faintly with Terran code. "The virus reached the core," she said. "Phase 4 is underway. I trust you enjoyed my funeral." Eliza's voice wavered. "How, Mom? How are you transmitting?" "The execution was real," Helena said softly. "But death is flexible when you understand information. My body's gone. I am retained." Her smile was faint, almost apologetic. "They digitized my mind to study diplomacy. I repurposed the cage." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, shock slowly giving way to awe. "You hijacked their AI matrix." "I borrowed it," she corrected. "And now, children, it's time to return the favor." The walls of the suite trembled. The skyline outside shifted. Massive holographic billboards changed from imperial insignias to a simple white teacup. Across the city, alarms shrieked, communications failed, and then, abruptly, everything went silent. Eliza's monitors filled with data streams. The Empire's fleet codes, planetary defenses, Senate transmissions, all rerouting to a single source marked Ward Prime. Helena's projection turned slightly, as if watching the chaos from her vantage within the machine. They built their empire on obedience. We will end it with choice. Marcus's jaw clenched. "You mean destroy them?" "Not destroy," she said. "Rebuild them from the inside. Give every citizen the one thing the Empire forbade: free will." Eliza's eyes glistened. "Mom, you'll burn out their entire infrastructure." "Billions could survive," Helena interrupted. "And remember." The lights dimmed to a crimson haze as thunder rolled through the city. Great towers shut down one by one, their energy siphoned into the central core. The planetary network pulsed with Terran frequency, heartbeat rhythm, human cadence, imperfect and alive. Sam looked at the readings and whistled. "She's rewriting the operating systems of a civilization." Marcus turned to the window, voice low. "You can't fight gods, so you teach them guilt." The Imperial Senate was in uproar. The broadcast of Helena's resurrection spread across the galaxy, reaching every colony, every fleet, every conquered world. The same message repeated endlessly: empires fall. Humanity evolves. Soon, the siblings were summoned to the central hall, the same chamber where Helena had once been humiliated. They went willingly, escorted by trembling guards, unsure whom they served anymore. The streets outside were filled with chaos. Some aliens kneeling, others running, others simply staring up at the sky, where Helena's face now glowed like a constellation. Inside the hall, the Grand Council sat in silence, their confidence gone. The Varan overlord's scales dulled to gray, his tail twitching nervously. "What are you?" he hissed when they entered. Marcus smiled thinly. "Ambassadors." Eliza stepped forward. "You executed our mother for speaking truth. Now, she's giving you the privilege of listening." Helena's hologram materialized between them and the council. Her voice filled the chamber with impossible calm. "For centuries, you called yourselves enlightened. You built order by crushing voices, calling it peace. But peace isn't silence. It's balance. And balance requires conscience." The Overlord snarled. "You infect our systems. You corrupt thought itself." "Exactly," she said. "You feared infection because you knew your purity was rot." He lunged through her projection, roaring, claws slicing through light. "And this." Her image flickered, then reformed, serene. "Already begun." The hall shook as power surged through the citadel. Windows shattered outward. In orbit, the Imperial fleet convulsed, ships freezing mid-maneuver, crews shouting as guidance systems failed. Then, one by one, the ships rotated toward the sun. "They're aligning," Eliza whispered. "Not to fire, but to mirror." "Mirror what?" Sam asked. Helena turned to them, eyes glimmering with data streams. "Us." From orbit, the fleet projected massive beams of light across space, forming the Terran symbol of unity, the old emblem humanity had abandoned long ago. 3 interlocking circles around a single flame. The message transmitted galaxy-wide. Sentience is sacred. Freedom is contagious. On planets light years away, Oppressed species watched their masters falter. Rebellions ignited, not from orders, but from understanding. The overlord collapsed to his knees, eyes wide, trembling not with fear, but confusion. "What have you done?" Helena's voice softened. "Given you empathy, the deadliest weapon of all." He shuddered. We can feel them. The ones we killed. The pain. "That's the price of memory," she said. The chamber descended into chaos. Some aliens screamed, others wept. Guards dropped weapons as realization spread like fire. Helena's transmission echoed through every mind in range. Humanity does not conquer. Humanity converts. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Mom, if you keep the link active, your core will collapse. You'll burn yourself out." "I know." "Then stop." She looked at her children. Her expression, the same calm patience she'd carried even when bleeding on that polished floor. "I didn't raise you to finish wars," she said. "I raised you to end them." Eliza's eyes filled. "Don't do this." Helena smiled. "Tea's meant to be served warm, darling, not hoarded." The light around her body began to fracture, tiny shards of radiance breaking away into code. Her voice grew fainter. "You three are my legacy. Remember, humans aren't powerful because we're cruel. We're powerful because we remember what cruelty feels like." Then she was gone. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of systems rebooting into new order. Outside, the sky turned golden as the fleet released one final pulse, a wave of energy that erased the old Imperial network entirely. Every slave collar, every obedience implant, every neural leash disintegrated into dust. The Empire's control ended not with an explosion, but with a sigh. Marcus stood motionless. "She's gone." Eliza wiped her eyes, voice steady despite the tremor. "No, she's everywhere now. Every code line carries her name." Sam looked up at the ceiling, where faint flickers of light danced like fireflies. "She digitized humanity into their conscience. She's their voice." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then the galaxy's in for an interesting therapy session." They turned to leave the chamber. Behind them, the overlord knelt alone, hands trembling. "How do I live with this?" he whispered. Eliza paused at the doorway. "That's the human question," she said. "You'll figure it out." They stepped into the open air. Dawn had arrived, pale gold cutting through the smoke of revolution. Below them, millions of liberated beings stood staring at the rising light. The wind carried fragments of an old Terran lullaby. The same Helena had hummed in her trial. Marcus stopped at the edge of the stairs and looked back at the planet now pulsing with rebirth. "She taught them what it means to feel," he said, "and what it costs." Eliza nodded, her voice a whisper. "She taught us too." Sam tilted his head, listening to the hum of the new network. "You hear that?" "What?" Marcus asked. "The heartbeat. It's in sync with Earth's frequency now." They listened, 3 children, one mother's echo, and a galaxy learning how to breathe. Marcus closed his eyes. Guess diplomacy really was her first weapon. The horizon flared with light. The revolution's calm aftermath stretched outward like ripples from a single teacup dropped into an ocean. And across that vast, trembling sea of stars, Helena's voice lingered one last time, soft as wind through data streams. "Now, children, pour another cup."